Hello, my name is Sierra Weaver, and this is Caleb and I's project on the BioBlitz presentation for biodiversity within Penn State. First off, I'm going to explain the basis of this project. So first of all, biodiversity is the variance of life in an environment. And then BioBlitz itself is when a community of people come together and try to identify as many organisms as they can in a given environment. First off is the vertebrate, and I found this. It is a tree squirrel. Tree squirrels are very common here at Penn State, and so it wasn't all that difficult to find one. This one specifically was found in the chemistry building close to my dorm. Tree squirrels can be found anywhere with trees and a food source within Europe and the eastern US. They eat fallen acorns and other byproducts by trees, so like leaves. Squirrels benefit humans because of their meat. Their meat is used to be eaten, and then their fur is used for a variety of reasons, but they also cause damage, and which can affect us humans, so they can get into electrical boxes, our sheds, and stuff like that. They are game animals, so they can be hunted. In PA specifically, you can only hunt 6 a day. And for their sexual maturity, they mature at 1 year old, and they mate around twice a year. They have a gestation period of around 45 days, and they are weaned around 11 weeks old. Next is the invertebrate, and this is an earthworm here in the background. This one specifically was found under a log in the horse pasture. One thing about worms is that they're hermaphrodites, so they have both female and male sex organisms. They don't self-fertilize though, so they mate on the surface of soil and they produce a tiny cocoon in the third portion of their body, and then that cocoon is buried, and within 2 to 4 weeks, those baby worms are born. Earthworms and other worms consume soil and eat the nutrients within the soil, and that is their food source. And they are super important for soil because they give different nutrients to the soil and kind of do like a cycle. And they are used for us humans for bait for fishing as well as composting. And they contain annuli. So they have little tiny bristles on the outside of their body that allow them to move throughout the soil. Next is the flowering plant, and this one specifically is the plumeless thistle. I found this one also in the horse pasture. They are native to Europe, but they were first found in the US and New Jersey. They don't compete well with other vegetation. They aren't very invasive, but once they are grounded in the soil, they can reproduce. They are biennials, so they germinate in either the winter or the spring of 1 year, and then they are flowered in the spring or summer of the next year. They are a weed, so their pricks or their flowers stick to materials like our clothes, or for example, these thistles here were found in the horse pasture, and they are often found in the horse's tails because they stick to them. And they can grow up to 4 feet tall, and their taproot goes straight down in the ground, and they can reach up to 1 foot long. Lastly is the non-flowering plant. So this is the shield fern. This fern specifically was found in the Peace Garden here at Penn State. Ferns are typically used as deoxidants in contaminated water, soil, and air, so that is a great use of them. They act as shelter and food sources in the wild, so shelter for animals like squirrels or birds or other organisms. Shield ferns reproduce by spores that are found underneath their leaves, and that's how they reproduce, and then they reproduce about every few months.
Thank you, Sarah. Moving on to the next organism, we're looking at fungi here. So for this particular fungi that Sarah found in the second pasture behind the horse barns where she was at, it is called the Cystoleopiota. And what we observed immediately was that it was surrounded by a significant amount of mold, as you can see on the picture on the left. This particular mushroom is not edible, and they break down decaying matter. Typically, these mushrooms are present either alone or in very small groups, found in usually like forest areas because they grow off of decayed wood. Um, they don't have any particular smell or odor, but they are like whitish in color. So from our experience during this project, we have 3 points we'd like to make. First, that more common organisms like flowering plants and vertebrates were definitely easier to find, rather than like fungi and non-flowering plants and things like that. And that brings us to our second point, which is that fungi were particularly harder to find because they inhabit other organisms, but also need very specific environmental conditions. So you can't just look under any tree to look for mushrooms and things. You need to find like damp, dark places where they usually grow at. And our last point is that we recommend searching um, during the times that the conditions for certain organisms are at its best. So this could also be done by first researching what organisms you want to find before going out into the environment, because some of the organisms you might be looking for might not necessarily be out at the time of day because of the environmental conditions, whether it's the weather or the or just the climate in general. So this brings us to our future research plans. So the question we wanted to ask was, can tree squirrels survive in different environments that vary in resource and species variability? I think typically, especially for a lot of us plant study students, when we think about squirrels, we think about the squirrels that roam around while we go through classes. And they just sit in trees and eat nuts and things that people leave on the floors. Um, but we wanted to see if they could live in environments that are more harsh and more diverse. So our null hypothesis was that squirrels are incapable of surviving in any environment other than what it's native to. And our alternative hypothesis was that squirrels are capable of adapting and surviving in various environments. So how we would experiment this would be to introduce a specific number of squirrels to varying environments with both either high or low resource and species variability. And in time, we would check the population of squirrels to see if they survived or not. So we actually found a paper that was done that had the similar idea, done by David J. Wood, John L. Krowski, and Peter W. W. Lurs, where they concluded that squirrels do in fact have the ability to survive in many different environments among many various types of resources and species. So these are the references that we use for our presentation and our work. Thank you.